Scottish Football Social Club is brought to you by McBookie.com. Take a lookie at McBookie today.
Hello everyone and welcome along again to what is episode 2 of the new Scottish Football Social Club on Premier Sports in association with McBookie. If you were watching last week and you're back with us, thank you very much. Live on X, live on YouTube. If you're watching just in the plain old simple television, nothing wrong with that, by the way, but don't send any questions in because this is probably a rerun. And if you were watching last week, you'll also note that Alan Hutton and Michael Stewart are back with us. Really good to hear that after the programme, they actually phoned the producers at Premier Sports to say they wanted to come on again. So they must have had an absolute ball, or the fee is astronomical. And I doubt it's the latter, but we go again, and that's more nonsense for me when we should be talking about Scottish football and what was a brilliant weekend in the Premier Sports Cup. A few shocks in the last 16, Michael. We have to start on Spartans knocking out Ross County, a fourth-tier team knocking out a top-flight side. Does not happen very often, Michael.
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest shock was the producers never told you that my only condition was that you weren't back on, Darrell. Unfortunately, they're not listening to me.
No, here's the Blair Henderson goal.
That's a great. I mean, look, Blair Henderson. I mean, what a goal-scoring record he's got for Spartans. Obviously, beforehand at Edinburgh City as well. He knows his way to the back of the net, and it's a great victory for Spartans. They are the last remaining team in the competition, obviously from Edinburgh. Hearts and Hibs have managed to get knocked out before Spartans, so that's a wee accolade for the team for Ainsley Park. And you know, it's a difficult one for Ross County. It's it's not been a great start to the season so far for them. They're out the cup now as well, but things march on for Spartans, and well done them.
Michael, were they good enough for you then now to go every other weekend to go and watch Spartans at home?
He's going to have to. He's going to have to. Another teams are out.
It's the north side of the city, Darrell. It's a bit too far away from me.
He likes to stay close to home, Alan.
Yeah, it looks that way. But one team flying the flag. He's going to have to go and support them now.
Yeah, Dougie Samuel and his men. That was a brilliant result. Just a little question. I know people love a bit of trivia. Alan, I'll put you on the spot. Do you know the last fourth-tier team to reach the last 8 of the Scottish League Cup?
Michael, do you know?
I'm thinking there might be a wee sort of, not a joke, but a wee sort of trick question there.
Aye, like Rangers.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Alan, yes, I was asking you on purpose, but that just says it all. It shows how tough it is to do. And of course, next up for them, Michael, is Aberdeen. Another win for Jimmy Tellene and his men. He's doing everything right. I know it wasn't a fantastic display against Queen's Park, but he's doing everything right so far.
I mean, look, you're right. It wasn't a fantastic performance, but Jimmy Tellene coming in, there has been good performances, and it's another win. So the momentum just continues to build. And off the back of Majowski obviously going, they've now got Kuskinen, their new signing, coming in and banging him around the back of the net in injury time. You've got to say that couldn't have been a better start. So it's moving on brilliantly for Aberdeen, and it couldn't be any better for Jimmy Tellene and his men. Few quid spent, new guy up top, scores a goal. Did they quickly forget about Majowski? Perhaps not, but they're certainly going in the right direction this season.
I think that's the one thing as well, Darrell, though. Like, for Majowski leaving, such a big player, it's not really affected them too much. I would say they've got a big fee in for him, but just the way Jimmy Tellene's playing football, like they're getting players higher up the pitch, they're moving the ball quicker, trying to create opportunities, and you can actually see what they're trying to do. I think they will be a threat this year. They've had a great start to the season, so I'm sure he's over the moon with it.
Yeah, great debut, as I was going to say there, for Topi Keskinen. What a finish, turn and finish in the box. Still waiting to see the Twa midfielder Antti Palaversa as well, Michael, who's thinking of other players still to come into this side.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, if Palaversa turns out to be anything like he is, he's shown earlier in his career, then that is a huge addition to the team for Aberdeen. And with the confidence and the momentum and the positivity around Pittodrie as it is, it's certainly going to be, I would imagine, a positive season for Aberdeen, which is good for Scottish football, I've got to say. It's even though it's a weird one, because even though they got into Europe the season before, it still felt like there was a bit of a crisis there, hence why obviously Jim Goodwin had lost his job. So there's been a couple of seasons, to be honest, since Derek McInnes has left, there's been a lot of turmoil at the club. So to get a bit of stability back at Aberdeen and get them challenging at the top of the table is certainly good for Scottish football.
And you know, Jimmy Tillini would have been in the boardroom, he'd have been knocking on the door to say, how much of that £6.8 million
all of it, please.
Alan, I mean, look, he needs to have something else, surely, because what a bit of business that is when you think what they signed him for.
It's amazing. It's amazing money. And look, it's deserved because he's turned up week in, week out. He's scored goals. He's been a handful. I'm really surprised that Rangers and Celtic haven't looked, even though could they afford that sort of price tag? Well, I'm talking more from Rangers' point of view. But yeah, he'll be hoping that he can get that money to reinvest because, look, they're going to want to challenge. They've started off really good, as we've said. I thought Hearts would be right up there after the first game of the season, but they're a little bit inconsistent. So Aberdeen, I think their fans will really back them this year and hopefully they get the money to do so.
I'll come back to Hearts in just a moment, but Michael actually came up with a really good point after we came off air last week, Alan, which is usually when he comes up with all his good points. But he posed a good question, better than I could ask normally, when he was talking about Adam Ida to Celtic, for £9.5 million. And Michael, were you asking the question, perhaps, would it have been better spent on Majowski for just under 7?
Well, it's a question I think that's worth posing. You know, I mean, there's no doubt that Adam Ida did a great job at Celtic in the second half of last season. But for, you know, a few million quid saving, I think it's worth posing. And look, I'm playing devil's advocate here to a certain extent because the one thing about Adam Ida is he came in, he didn't play every week, but he had a huge impact. And you can't discount that. Would Majowski have been able to have that impact were he not playing every week? And that would be the case. He's not going to play every week because you would imagine that Kyogo is the number one striker. Certainly, you know, with Adam Ida, even if he's not playing every week, he's still going to have a huge impact. And Celtic can afford it. You know, Hutz was saying perhaps they couldn't afford the 6.8 for Majowski.
They couldn't. You mean they definitely couldn't at this moment in time.
Alan, seriously, which player at those price tags would you have gone for?
Well, that's a difficult one. I take Michael's point. I mean, Majowski, I think, is a guy that would want to play week in, week out. He's probably not going to get that at Celtic because Kyogo's there. The Adam Ida one is it's a little bit. He has come in and done well last season, and they've probably overpaid a few million, but they feel he's the right choice. Whether he's going to be back up, and he'll be happy to do that, we'll find out. But as we know, players, you want to play every single minute, and him coming for such a big transfer fee, he'd be hoping that he can push his way in. So, look, competition's healthy, I think, moving forward for them. They're very strong anyway, and he's just going to add to that.
One thing, go on.
The other thing is, on the back of what's happened yesterday for Celtic, and you know, we were talking about this with Brendan Rodgers after the game, Maeda has shown himself. And I think here in Scotland, we felt that through the middle, maybe he wasn't an option. I know he's played there for Japan, but certainly there yesterday, he looked more than capable. He looked like a very viable option. So fast forward for last week where Kyogo is potentially injured. They haven't signed Adam Ida yet, and you're thinking they don't have a striker. All of a sudden now you're looking and going, they've got 3. They've got 3 options up there. So things move fast in football, and it's certainly looking good for Celtic in that department.
Yeah, and the other thing you'd say about Adam Ida, in fairness to him, he scored big goals and big moments last season, so he deserved that transfer and that fee maybe from Celtic and his own point of view as well. But back to Celtic in a moment, because the other big story at the weekend was Falkirk 2, Hearts 0. And you saw Hearts, only 7-8 days ago, Alan, and at the time everything was so positive for them. Dundee turned them over, now Falkirk as well, and that scoreline, a fair reflection on the match when you watch the game.
Yeah, I'd probably say so. I mean, after the first game of the season, I was feeling really positive about them, but here, I mean, you see the goals that they lose. Penrice caught up the pitch. It's a lovely cutback and good finish there. The second one, I mean, it's just a catalogue of errors. But Naismith, he made 8 changes, so they've got the depth there. I mean, is the strength what he's actually looking for? I mean, here, the pass to Craig Gordon from Kingsley's not great. Halkett, he needs to get back in, defend better. Kingsley then misses the ball again, and then they end up scoring. But I was really positive after seeing them the first game of the season, and just at this moment in time, they feel so inconsistent. I mean, I don't really know what it is. I mean, Nazy's tried different things. He changed the formation last week. He's changed the personnel this week. But, I mean, that game, it just shows you where they are. I just don't think they're that consistent way that they can then go and really challenge at the top end.
Michael, there's a lot of Hearts fans who've said for a while, not just the last couple of games, but for a while now, that maybe Stephen Naismith, he tinkers too much. Maybe he's admitted that himself now, but do you think this has been a problem actually going back a while now in his tenure?
Well, I mean, look, results often frame the debate on that. And Stephen Naismith himself, prior to the Rangers game, the first game of the season, he was talking that up about the fact that he'd only played the same starting 11 twice in the whole of last season, back to back. So he obviously saw that as some sort of attribute, as if he sees things game to game and he needs to change things up. That has been a complete 180 in a very short space of time, because after the Dundee game, he's almost holding his hands up and saying, well, maybe there's too many changes. He then makes 8 against Falkirk and they're out the cup. Look, for me, a lot of this can be hindsight, but anybody that knows Falkirk knows that wasn't going to be an easy tie. And I'm very surprised that he never had his spiniest team in place and didn't change it against Falkirk. Look at Celtic yesterday against Hibs. There was no messing about. That was as strong as they could be. Hearts are away to Falkirk, who are full of energy, full of pace. Those goals, look at them. They break at pace. And Hearts, unfortunately, irrespective of what team they set up with, they don't have pace. They don't have a great deal of energy. And as much as there is a good squad there, I think it's imbalanced. And they need to get back to basics of settled side, try and build a bit of momentum.
Michael, that's what I was going to say to you, though. Like, so, see, as an ex-player, I know things have moved on and changed ever so slightly, but when I was playing, I wanted to play every minute, especially if I was fit. You built up relationships with who was beside you, who was in front of you, especially if they were new players. So to constantly be changing, we very rarely, any team I was at, changed formation from week to week. You played a certain style. This is what I expect from you, and this is what I want you to do going forward. I just feel that the tinkering is it's not helping them at this moment in time. That's what from the outside looking in, that's what it looks like.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, look, the other sort of slight, not caveat, but the slight sort of asterisk to last season for Hearts as well is that you're the guy at the top end of the park that scored more than 30 goals. So that changes things dramatically. Now, if Lawrence Shankland has a bit of an off-season and maybe only scores 15, for example, that can have a huge impact on the team as a whole. Now, Hearts are not a one-man side because they have got quality there, but I do think there needs to be just a simplification, and they need to recruit pace. In this window, the next couple of weeks, they've got to get pace on that side. They've got too many players that are very similar in the same area of the park that if you have them all together, you're not going to have an impact.
I'm happy you gave Falkirk a good mention a minute ago as well, Michael, because John McGlynn and his side were superb and have been so far this season. The reward, of course, is Celtic in the next round of the Cup. But for Hearts right away, Michael, the next priority, and it's a huge game, comes in Europe, Victoria Pilsen. What an opportunity if they can turn this around to make the Europa League group stages 8 guaranteed games of European football and all the money that comes with the Europa League, which is obviously slightly better than the Conference League as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And not to be too sort of downbeat about Hearts, and I go back to the point I was making, there is a good squad there. And, game to game, I'm talking about the course of a season, I think there needs to be that addition to the squad. But in terms of setting up for these, games against Victoria Pilsner, there is a team there that's capable. They have got quality in there. And with the greatest of respect to Victoria Pilsen, they finished third, obviously, in the Czech League last year behind the two Prague sides. This is a team that, they're no mugs, but you look at Hearts and you say to yourself, there's no reason why they shouldn't be facing them off and going, what an opportunity, as you've just quite rightly said there, Darrell, to get into the Europa League and get 8 games there. It's a huge carrot, massive for the club.
Just briefly, Michael, who starts in goal on Thursday for you? Because saw Xander Clark and then Craig Gordon as well, both involved in goals the last 2 games. Not ideal from the goalkeeper's point of view, but who should start? Who's the Hearts number 1 right now?
Well, who's the Hearts number 1 right now? I think it's fair to say that Stephen Naismith has Xander Clark as the Hearts number 1.
I'd agree.
Who would I start on Thursday? Yeah. Craig Gordon.
What for his experience? More of an experienced type thing? Because we spoke about Craig Gordon a lot in terms of the Scotland and the setup and was he going to be in, what number was he going to be? So you think from an experience point of view, that's why he goes with him?
Yeah, and I just think quality. You know, I'm looking at these two games in isolation I get the whole debate about, and I've said it myself, longer term, Zander Clark has got greater longevity in his career. Craig Gordon's is coming towards the end of his career. Craig Gordon's a generational keeper. They both are very good. But even yesterday, for Hearts, some really, terrible goals to lose. Craig Gordon still came up with some big saves in that game.
He did.
He's a big-time keeper. This is a big-time game. I'd be starting him.
Yeah, and that's why I asked the question, because he did. He kept Hearts in the game for a while against
Good
Fulham.
question, Darrell. Well done.
Good. I had to think hard about that one, Michael, to get that one out before the show ended this week. Let's move on to Celtic and have a look at their goals against Hibs as well, because you've already talked about Dyson Maeda playing through the middle. He had a huge impact in the game. I also want to talk about Hibs as well, though, Alan, because we've just talked about the debacle in goals for Hearts there in their second.
Defensively.
Yeah,
look at Bashiri there.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, like, see when you go to a place like this, Celtic Park, defensively, you need to be switched on, clued in. And the first goal, I mean, and he doesn't learn. There's Bashiri, look, he's actually stopped. So see the first one, he passes on, I think, the cross, he passes him on, and he puts his hand up for offside. Just get back in your defensive shape. And I think that really caused some problems. I mean, Hibs came into this game, they got a goal back out of kind of nowhere when you really thought Celtic were going to put their foot down and run away with it, and then they kind of shoot themselves in the foot again. Here, I mean, come on. Ekpiteta, he's actually got options down the line. It's fine. Play out from the back. I get it. But at times you have to go long. You need to move forward. And he had options to do so, but felt the need to turn back in. But defensively, I thought they were poor.
Mm. And also on the goalkeeper, Joe Bursick, the back pass isn't great, but just clear the ball, Michael. He's trying to play again. I mean, Alan, was there times as a defender in your career, was there ever a manager that said to you, we're playing out from the back regardless, even if you didn't feel it was the right thing for the team? Did you just have to go along with it?
Yeah, well, I remember we were at Villa, and it was Paul Lambert at the time, and I think he had the connections in Germany, went over to see, I think it was Pep at the time, and he came back and he said, right, we're changing the plan, this is what we're going to do. We want the centre-halves to split, each corner of the 18-yard box. I want my full-backs to go to the corner flags. So I'm going, wow, how's this going to work?
You weren't turning to Philip Lamb, were you?
Well, I tried, but unfortunately it didn't quite work out for me. But he was trying to tell us that if I was to get the ball at the corner flag, I would have like 3 or 4 options. Like the wide guy would drop in, the midfielder would drop in, I'd have my centre-half. And to be fair to him, playing out was actually all right. The problem was we were playing games in the Premier League and we had no shots on target. We could keep the ball in our own half, just bopping it about, passing it side to side out to the corner flag, but 0 going forward. So things have changed.
I feel your pain. So many teams are trying to do it, and of course we're seeing more mistakes as a result. But just go back to Celtic as well, Michael. It's like they're playing second, third gear at times so far this season, and yet they also look very, very convincing at times. You were asking Brendan Rodgers after the game in Premier Sports, what positions he wants to now target the transfer window. He was having
hopefully none.
He was having no more. None of it, by the way. He was telling you nothing. But there's money there to spend, and maybe even more if Matt O'Reilly leaves Brighton. Apparently, they've put a formal bid in today. If that happens, Celtic kind of need that to happen very soon, Michael. There needs to be a deadline because they want to reinvest that money before the deadline and the Champions League games that are around the corner.
Yeah, definitely. It is a little bit of an awkward one, but I would imagine that they're working. Well, I think Brendan Rodgers said himself that he wants another midfielder, and if Matt O'Reilly goes, he wants 2. So I would imagine that they're working on all eventualities here, because the last thing you really want or need is to be getting to the last day or two of the window, and it's amazing how clubs find that extra few million quid to get a deal done, and then have Matt O'Reilly going and not have that extra player that they're looking for. But I keep saying it, for me, looking at Celtic at the moment, still feel like centre half and wide are the 2 sort of areas where you'd be looking to try and strengthen that starting 11. And that's no disrespect to Liam Scales, because by the way, he's been brilliant. But you would have no qualms with playing him. But I think if you're going to look to try to have that impact in Europe, they're the sort of areas. Somebody with a bit of X factor in the wide areas, perhaps a Jota back on loan. I can't believe it's never been discussed or floated as an idea.
Well, it has now. Is it going to happen,
Yeah.
Michael? you know, what did Brendan tell you off camera?
I didn't realise he's turned into an agent. Oh, Mikey there. Mikey the
Like
agent.
Saudi. That is not happening.
Yeah, okay. Silence says it all. Obviously, he told him nothing, Alan. Listen, we've got to move on because we've got a few minutes to go. I want you just to listen in. Rangers v St Johnstone at the weekend. The big talking point, as you guys know, was the first goal in the game. The St Johnstone players have said they're adamant there was 2 whistles. We've really listened carefully today, haven't we, all three of us? And we're not sure if there's one just before the goal. So just before we speak again, just have a listen to this. I don't want to get into the whole incident again because, look, the referee's had a nightmare. He's gestured for a free kick, even if he's not blown up before the goal scored. And that's a shocker. That's obviously poor officiating. But importantly, Alan, do you hear just the subtle...
I know what you're saying.
Before the ball goes in the net there. Is he almost inhaled the whistle for a second?
It sounds like he's breathed in on the whistle. One of them. It could be. I mean, the players, you need to remember, they're on the pitch. They are close to him. So they'll probably have a better idea. Me personally, I did hear something. It could be for the crowd. It could be anything. I'm sticking with what I seen and what I heard. Understand people looking in from the ref and his actions, putting his arm out, had the whistle at his mouth. I understand. I think the St Johnstone players roundabout did stop, but the actual defensive line didn't. They continued to play on. I thought Dessers got his foot stood on. He's continued to play. He's put the ball in the net. Then you hear it. I mean, it's not ideal, but I think the main whistle was the one that we heard.
Yeah, and look, Mike, I don't want you to get into the biomechanics of whistling or anything here, okay? Because we've only got a few minutes to go.
Try though, just let him try.
But bottom line, Michael, is that was a shambles, wasn't it?
There's no doubt about it. I mean, look, fundamentally, you do not play advantage when you think that an attacker has committed a foul. It's simple as that. It just doesn't happen. And there is no question that there, on that first angle, you do hear what sounds like, as I was saying, almost like he's inhaling slightly on the whistle. It's not a foul, and the goal is good. It should stand as a goal. But the point is that there is a normal procedure. And if a referee thinks that an attacker has committed a foul, he blows his whistle. He doesn't play on. Because if, for argument's sake, the ball's up in the air and an attacker elbows a defender, you don't allow the game to play on and the guy to score the goal and then pull it back.
No, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. In the end, obviously, look, it wasn't a foul by Dessers, so maybe the right decision has been made in the end. It was just a mess how they got there.
But it's important. But you're right. The goal is a good goal, but it's important that you have a structure and a normal process that's followed, and that wasn't followed there. No question about that. Just on Rangers, Alan, just when you looked around you at the weekend, around Hampden, the number of empty seats, I think it says a lot about what the fans feel about the way the football club are handling things at the moment. Obviously, Nemo Kiev was a disaster, a shocking referee's decision in that game as well. We know all about that, but that's cost Rangers, what, £4 or £5 million immediately, not even getting through to the next round of the Champions League qualifying, and then, what, tens of millions after that. Now Philippe Clement has a big job.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a problem. There's no getting away from the fact. I mean, against Kiev, the red card, we've spoke about it. It was a terrible decision. The fans we know they're unhappy. I mean, I think there was, 23,000 there at Hampden. It wasn't a great game. He did try and make changes. They're lacking in a lot of positions for me. And unfortunately, I believe in the manager and what he's trying to say and what he's trying to do. But it's like he's got his arms tied behind his back at this moment in time. There's not finances there for him to go and help build the squad the way he wants it. I think he's been told previously that he would get the money, but it's not there. And now going out of the Champions League, that money, that gap that's opening up. We talk about Celtic and how they can go and afford to spend nearly 10 million on a striker. Those days at this moment in time for Rangers are done. And some of the players that are coming in, the likes of Danilo, these guys, Darrell, I don't think they're at the level that can now push them on. I know Danilo's been out for a long period of time, but I just don't see what he's going to do at this moment in time, because Rangers need help now. I know he's brought in young players for the future, which is fine, but they need experienced players at this moment to help them.
Yeah, look, they need players that are committed as well. The Todd Cantwell situation, players not wanting to be at the football club, it doesn't look good. They need players like Conor Barron, who seem like they're going to give everything on the park every single week. But there hasn't been much focus on the manager, and he's not bulletproof either, Alan, because I know there's been a lot of focus on the boardroom. But some of his decisions, you think of the Dynamo Kiev game and the way he's rotated players, not starting Cherney in that important Champions League match, not starting Sterling as well. I think a lot of the fans felt that was wrong. Going 1-0 down in the match, then Prupper moving up the park so quickly, and that backfired as well. So despite all the other focus, has he been good enough?
Yeah, well, look, I think if you look at him last season, he came in, they changed that squad around, he got the best out of them. They fell short the last 8 to 10 weeks. This year, I think it's been difficult for him. Well, I genuinely believe in what he's trying to do. He signed a new long-term contract. He's trying to rebuild. He's trying to stop that cycle where it's just players coming in, big money, then leaving for nothing. But it needs to stop. It needs to start somewhere. Like, you need to break the cycle on it for it to start now, and it's going to take time. I think this could be a rocky season for Rangers moving forward. With everything that's going on, I think it's going to be difficult for him. Of course, he needs to take some of the blame, because ultimately he makes decisions. He picks the team. He puts them out there. But the one like Cherney, for an example, him not starting that game, I thought he was really good against Motherwell. He came off after 55 minutes. And then he goes on at half-time. It's like, surely you're kind of protecting him for that game. So, yes, he'll probably look back at it and think he could make a difference, but I don't think he's been helped from above.
No. And next up for Rangers in the quarterfinals, Dundee, who just can't stop scoring. I know the game's not next week, but Michael, right now, Rangers are going to have to be very careful, because they will lose a game like that eventually if they continue to underperform. And Dundee's at 29 goals they've scored already this season. Yeah, you saw the thing against Hearts last weekend, Michael.
Yeah. I mean, look, Dundee are in a great position at the moment. Banging goals in for fun, looking dangerous. They've got a good balanced team. They do. I mean, look, obviously it's at home, or certainly depending on where it is, it'll be, maybe at Hampden. It could be dangerous, but it would be worse if it was up at Dens. Let's say that, for example. But, I agree with Alan. I think this season really is a season where Rangers have just got to take stock of where they are and recognise that perhaps they aren't going to be challenging, and they need to try to build, something with some strong foundations.
Yeah. The other winners in the cup at the weekend, I should say, Dundee United and Motherwell, maybe a bridge too far for our teams who are playing in Europe this week. Kilmarnock and St Mirren were playing against those oppositions at the weekend and came up just short. Kilmarnock, though, a fantastic result in Europe last week. Big Johan Mjällby, remember, he predicted that one last week. He was bang on, Killy through. And there's some talk now that Kilmarnock might ask for their game next weekend against Aberdeen to be postponed, because they go to Copenhagen, don't they, on Thursday, and then they return right after that as well. Why not allow them to have the week off then, Alan? Because should we not be wanting all of our teams to have the best possible chance in European football, to raise the coefficient, to bring the money in as well?
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I want all the Scottish teams to do well. I've watched the games. I want them to perform and go through it. It's better for us. It's better for our league. The coefficient, as you're saying. So why not get help? Other leagues around the world do it. I mean, Rangers have come up against teams that haven't played at the weekend to kind of focus on that game. So, well, I think I'm not sure it will happen, because it's not really happened in the past. But again, you need to have some sort of change to help these teams out. But I'm really rooting for Kilmarnock. I think it's going to be difficult going to Copenhagen. That's going to be hard. I felt for them there, going to extra time. Stuart Findlay getting sent off. Joe Wright, the game before, getting sent off, is something that Derek McInnes is going to fix. But hopefully we can help them out, because you want to see them progress.
Yeah, you're spot on, Alan. What a nightmare for them at the weekend. Again, down to 10, as Alan says, Michael, extra time. I know they made changes, but my word, everything seems to be going against them domestically after a brilliant win in Europe.
Yeah, domestically, absolutely. That's the concern for Kilmarnock. Obviously, they're out the Premier Sports Cup now. That is it. There's no way back. The league, they can perhaps try to build up momentum and catch up, so it's not too concerning. But the biggest carrot for Kilmarnock, like obviously for Hearts, is that there's an opportunity there to get into the group stages of European football in the Conference League. And it's obviously a football calendar issue. Can the league accommodate a missed game and fit it in somewhere else? I would argue In this instance, yes, they can. So get it done, give Killie the best chance possible, and hopefully they cause an upset in Copenhagen.
If they do, by the way, they bring in about £5 million to the football club, and that really is game-changing. You said no way back in the Premier Sports Cup. The only way back for us is next Monday, because we are absolutely out of time. Alan, Michael, thank you very much. Thank you for watching again as well. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.
The Scottish Football Social Club is brought to you by McBookie.com. Take a lookie at McBookie today.